Picture this. The vast Mongolian steppe stretches endlessly under a moonless sky, snow swirling like ghostly spectres across the frozen wasteland. A lone rider tears through the darkness, her horse's hooves thundering against the iron-hard earth. The woman clutches something precious against her chest, her breath forming crystalline clouds that vanish instantly in the bitter wind. Behind her, the distant rumble of pursuit grows louder, war drums echoing across the desolate plains. Her face bears the mark of absolute terror, mixed with steel determination. The howling you hear might be wolves, or it might be something far more terrifying, the hunting dogs of her own husband. This is not a story of conquest or glory, but of a betrayal so intimate and devastating that it would scar the soul of history's most ruthless emperor until his dying breath. The woman fleeing through this frozen hell is no ordinary refugee. She is Khulan, queen of the Mongol Empire, cherished wife of Genghis Khan himself. The man pursuing her with relentless fury is not some distant enemy general, but the great Khan, the conqueror who has crushed nations beneath his heel. Yet tonight, she has done the unthinkable. She has defied him. Wrapped in her desperate embrace lies the future of an entire bloodline, the last surviving child of a tribe her husband obliterated in one of his most merciless campaigns. The stakes could not be higher. Her life hangs by a thread. An innocent child's future rests in her trembling hands, and the pride of the most powerful man who ever lived burns like wildfire at this ultimate act of disobedience. To understand the magnitude of her defiance, you must first grasp the gilded cage that was her existence. Khulan lived in unimaginable luxury within the Khan's sprawling court, adorned with silks from distant China and jewels plundered from conquered kingdoms. Yet beneath the opulence lurked a constant suffocating dread. She had witnessed her husband's volcanic rage reduce brave warriors to weeping children. She had seen him order the execution of entire families for far lesser transgressions than hers. Every day in his presence was a delicate dance on the razor's edge of his unpredictable temperament. But what transformed this terrified queen into a desperate fugitive was a command so monstrous that even her well-trained submission crumbled. 3 days earlier, Genghis Khan had stormed into her chambers, his eyes blazing with paranoid fury. In his massive hands, he held a squirming infant, barely 2 years old, the sole survivor of the Merkid tribe. Intelligence had reached him that shamans were whispering prophecies about this child, claiming the boy carried the blood of ancient kings who would one day rise to challenge Mongol supremacy. The Khan's order was simple and absolute: kill the child personally, or watch as he fed the infant to his hunting hounds while she was forced to witness every agonizing moment. This is the moment that defines her. Faced with this impossible choice, what would you do? Obey the most powerful and ruthless man on earth, or follow your conscience and commit an act of ultimate treason? Let me know in the comments. Was her defiance the highest form of courage, or a betrayal of her husband and her empire? The blood drained from Khulan's face as she stared at the innocent child. Something deep within her soul, perhaps the maternal instinct she had buried after multiple miscarriages, perhaps the last flickering ember of the compassionate woman she had been before becoming the Khan's wife, suddenly roared to life. She nodded submissively, took the child into her arms, and began crafting the most dangerous gamble of her life. For 2 days, Khulan played the role of the obedient wife, while secretly orchestrating her desperate plan. She whispered to trusted servants, bribing them with precious jewelry to prepare supplies for a long journey. She studied the patrol schedules of the Khan's guards, memorizing every gap in their vigilance. Most cunningly, she spread false rumors about her intentions, suggesting she planned to take the child to a sacred grove for a proper ritual sacrifice that would honor the Khan's victory over the Merkid people. But what Genghis Khan didn't know was that the child she protected carried a secret not even she fully understood. A birthmark that matched ancient Mongol prophecies about a future leader who would unite the scattered tribes, not through conquest, but through wisdom and compassion. It makes you wonder, what if those prophecies were true? What if this child's survival was the key to a completely different future for the Mongol Empire? Share your theories in the comments below. On the chosen night, while the Khan attended a victory feast celebrating another successful campaign, Khulan enacted her plan. She wrapped the sleeping child in wolf fur, secured food and gold in her saddlebags, and led her swiftest horse toward the western gate. The guard she had bribed looked the other way as she passed, but her heart nearly stopped when she heard her husband's booming laughter echoing from the great hall, a sound that had preceded countless executions. The first hours of her escape passed in agonizing tension. Every shadow seemed to hide pursuers. Every sound of the wind resembled approaching hoofbeats. The child, miraculously, remained silent, as if sensing the mortal danger surrounding them both. Khulan pushed her mount harder than she ever had, the bitter cold slicing through her robes like invisible knives. Behind her, the lights of the Khan's encampment gradually faded into the darkness, but she knew that by morning, her absence would be discovered. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, the sound she had been dreading finally reached her ears, the rhythmic thunder of multiple horses in pursuit. Genghis Khan had discovered her betrayal, and his rage would be beyond anything she had ever witnessed. But what he didn't realize was that she had prepared for this moment, leaving behind a deliberate message that would wound his pride even more deeply than her escape. The truth was, she wasn't acting alone in her defiance. The most devastating blow to the Khan wouldn't be her escape, but its architects, a network of silent sympathizers that included several of his own battle-hardened generals, men who had served him faithfully for decades, had grown sick of the senseless slaughter. They provided her with safe houses, fresh horses, and most importantly, information about his pursuit routes. The pursuit continued for 3 relentless days across the unforgiving steppe. Khulan's horse began to falter from exhaustion, foam flecking its muzzle as she demanded impossible speeds across treacherous terrain. The child had begun to cry from hunger and cold, his small voice almost lost in the howling wind. Behind them, the Khan's war party drew steadily closer, their battle standards visible on the horizon like harbingers of doom. On the 4th morning, as the sun rose like a merciless eye over the frozen wasteland, Khulan found herself trapped in a narrow canyon with no escape route. The sound of approaching horses echoed off the rocky walls, growing louder with each passing moment. She dismounted, clutched the child protectively against her chest, and turned to face her fate with the dignity of a true queen. Genghis Khan appeared at the canyon's mouth like a figure from nightmares, his armor gleaming dully in the pale light. His face was a mask of controlled fury, more terrifying than any explosive rage. Behind him rode 50 of his most elite warriors, men who had helped him conquer half the known world. The silence stretched between them like a taut bowstring, broken only by the infant's soft whimpering. Instead of begging for mercy or attempting to justify her actions, Khulan did something that stunned even the great Khan into momentary silence. She stood tall, raised her chin defiantly, and spoke words that would haunt him forever. You conquered every kingdom on earth, but you could never conquer the darkness in your own heart. This child represents everything you destroyed in yourself: innocence, compassion, hope for a better tomorrow. Kill him, and you prove that the greatest Mongol warrior was too weak to spare one helpless infant. What happened next shocked every witness present. Genghis Khan, the man who had ordered the deaths of millions without a moment's hesitation, sat frozen on his horse, staring at the woman who had dared to hold up a mirror to his soul. The child in her arms reached up with tiny fingers, touching her face with unconscious trust, and something inside the Khan's chest seemed to crack like ice breaking in spring. The moment stretched into eternity. Warriors who had never seen their leader show uncertainty shifted nervously in their saddles. The wind whistled through the canyon, like the voices of all those who had fallen before the Khan's ambition. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Genghis Khan spoke the words that would echo through history. "Take the child. Disappear. If I ever see either of you again, not even the gods will be able to save you." He wheeled his horse around and rode away without another word, leaving his stunned warriors to follow. Khulan remained standing in the canyon for long minutes after the hoofbeats faded, hardly daring to believe she had survived the most dangerous gamble in history. The aftermath of her defiance rippled through the empire like stones thrown into still water. Word spread quietly among the conquered peoples that even the great Khan could be moved by courage and moral conviction. Some say her act of rebellion planted the first seeds of compassion in the Khan's later years, leading him to occasionally spare cities that surrendered without resistance. Others claim it haunted him with questions about the true cost of his conquests. Khulan herself vanished into the vast steppe, becoming a legend whispered around campfires. Some tales claim she founded a hidden settlement where refugees from the Khan's campaigns could find sanctuary. Others say she raised the Merkid child as her own son, teaching him the arts of leadership and compassion that would make him a very different kind of ruler. The truth disappeared with her into the endless grasslands, leaving only stories and the echo of her courage. Genghis Khan never spoke of that confrontation in the canyon, but those closest to him noticed subtle changes. He began to spare more children in his campaigns, sometimes ordering them to be adopted into Mongol families, rather than executed. Whether this represented genuine remorse or simply practical politics, none dared to ask. The Khan's inner thoughts remained as impenetrable as fortress walls. Years later, as the great Khan lay dying, witnesses claimed he spoke deliriously of a woman and child disappearing into a desert dawn, their silhouettes burned into his memory like brands. Some historians suggest these fever dreams revealed the one victory that had truly escaped him. Not the conquest of distant lands, but the conquest of his own humanity. And so the queen who defied the unstoppable conqueror proved that even the mightiest empire could be shaken not by armies or siege engines, but by a single heart that refused to surrender its compassion. In choosing mercy over obedience, love over fear, she achieved something that all his military genius could never accomplish. She forced the world's greatest conqueror to confront the man he had become, and perhaps, in that moment of recognition, she saved not just one innocent child, but the last fragment of Genghis Khan's soul. If you believe some truths are worth defying an empire for, let me know in the comments with the word courage.